I'm going to show you a simple way to make biscuits. I think I got the oven on preheat for 400. Hopefully it's not stuck on 375. Okay, so there's 2 ingredients in the recipe. This is not my recipe. This is a recipe from before I was born, and I'm going to show you what goes in it. Here's some unbleached flour. You can use bleached flour if you want. And here's some whipping cream, heavy whipping cream. Now, when you're using fresh cream from the cow, and the cream separates from the milk's on the bottom and the cream's on the top. The cream that's at the very top is the heavy whipping cream, and the cream that's close to the milk is the light whipping cream. Seems kind of strange and weird, but that's how it is. So the heavy whipped cream's on top, and that's what this is. So this is 16 ounces of whipping cream. So I'm going to use about half of this, which is 1 cup, because there's 8 fluid ounces to a cup. And so that's half of this. And then I'm going to use half a cup of flour. I got 1 cup poured out, but I'm not going to use 1 cup. I'm going to use a half a cup. So I'm going to pour my half cup. Let me see here. Yeah, right at a half cup. Pretty good guess. Normally I don't measure things out, but for the sake of the video, I'm going to go ahead and measure it out. I usually just eyeball it. Alright, so there's the half cup of cream. And then there's so many different ways to make biscuits. Now you're going to need a little bit more flour to knead this with. Okay, so there's a half cup. And then when the flour is mixed in with the cream, you just do it to get it wet. You don't over mix it, because if you do, it's going to get real hard and doughy. Okay. This is pre-sifted, but if you don't have it pre-sifted, you can use a sifter, okay? Or you can use a something like this right here. Just put your flour in it and then shake it and hit it like that, you know. Something to lighten up the flour. Or you can just use a fork and fluff it around. Okay. I've been making biscuits for years. I know many different ways to make them. I used to make about 80 biscuits to 100 biscuits a day. Alright. And you want to get it to where it's a little less wet than waffle batter. Okay. Need a little more wet. There you go. And the reason you only use these 2 ingredients is because there's a lot of fat in heavy whipping cream. That's what you make butter with. It's heavy whipping cream. Okay. Just about there. A little bit more flour. Just to get up the wetness. And then I should be good to go. Alright. Now you can put wax paper down and then or use a cutting board and then put some flour on it. I cleaned this cupboard already, so I'm going to sprinkle some flour on there. And I'm going to get some flour on my hands. Okay? And then I'm going to put the biscuit mix onto the counter. It's probably going to make about 4 biscuits maybe. Depends on how big I want to make them. Okay? And then I got the flour on my hands, so just kind of Move it around till you get the flour all over it. Okay, now you can use a rolling pin if you want. You don't want to work the dough too much, because if you do, it's going to make it real tough. The less you work the dough, the more fluffy the biscuits will be. Alright. Now, if you don't want to work the dough, you can just put a little bit of shortening on the pan. Any kind of shortening. And then just take spoonfuls of biscuits, about a tablespoon and a half each, and drop them onto the pan and bake them that way. Those are called drop biscuits. Okay, I'm going to get a cut. I'm going to cut these biscuits. Okay, a lot of people go from the inside of the dough. I pull the outside of the dough in to make the first biscuit or so, or a couple of them. Alright. You don't need to grease the pan for floured biscuits. After you get these biscuits shaped, even before, you should let the dough rise for about 5 or 10 minutes, okay? Let it rest. Excuse me. Okay, so the last one's shaped by hand. Then after you let them sit on the pan, you cover and let them set for about 5 to 10 minutes again. So let me get my hands cleaned off. Okay, so right there is 4 biscuits. I guess I had that on twice the size. Sorry about that. So there's 4 biscuits there. And then I got this set on 400, but it's not heating up to 400 for some reason. I'm going to switch it over to regular baking instead of the one with the air. Oh, that's the convection one. Okay. Alright, so I'm going to let that set a little bit. I'm going to let these set a little bit. And I'm going to come back and I'm going to throw these in the oven. I'm only making 4 biscuits because it's just for me. And then after I get done, I'm going to put some butter and honey on them. Now, if you want, you can put some cream or milk over the top, or you can put scrambled eggs over the top. There's many different ways to make biscuits. There's baking soda biscuits, there's baking powder biscuits, baking powder, baking soda biscuits, yeast biscuits, yeast, baking powder, and baking soda biscuits. I mean, there's all different ways to do it. You can do it with lard and milk. You can add salt to it. You can add sugar to it. You can make all kinds of stuff. You can even make these into cinnamon rolls or scones. Or even flan if you know how to do a flan recipe. So anyways, this is just simple old-fashioned biscuits made with heavy whipping cream and flour, unbleached pre-sifted flour. Like I said, you can use any kind of flour you want. You want to use regular, bleached, unbleached, pre-sifted, not sifted. As long as you fluff up the flour, then it will be okay. They'll make softer biscuits. So I might make another batch tomorrow. I'm going to put this on pause for now. Oh, if I spread these apart, they're not going to rise as high. So I'm going to put these together and stick them in the corner. And then that'll help these rise more by being together. Like that. Okay, so spread them apart if you want them flatter. Put them together if you want them to raise up more. I'm not going to let them rise too long. I'm just going to go ahead and let them go in. But normally you let them rise in the bowl about 5 to 10 minutes. And then once you put them in the pan, let them rise 5 or 10 minutes. And then bake them for about 10 to 12 minutes. Depends on how hot you got the oven. On 425, you want to bake them maybe 8 to 10 minutes. And then if you have them about 400, bake them 10 to 12 minutes until they get brown on top and bottom. And bake them in the center part of the oven, not high and not low. I decided to go ahead and make up the rest of the biscuits. I'm just not going to bake them. I'm going to refrigerate them or freeze them and use them later. But there you can see the dough. It's resting. After I get the biscuits out of the oven, I'll go ahead and shape these, and then I'll let them sit for about 10 minutes before I cook these. At least you got to see it a little bit better. It's barely stirred together. Okay, so I got these other biscuits sitting on the plate. You notice I don't have it on there tight on the plastic, just to cover it up, because it needs room to breathe and rest. And that way they'll rise up. Once they get done rising, then I'll make sure this is a little tighter, and I'll put it in the refrigerator or freezer for later use. Oh, looks like I got it upside down or something. Oh well. However I got it. So right here is the biscuits, and I'm going to set them on my little napkin. I got some butter and some pear butter, homemade pear butter that I made. Okay, so there you have it, the homemade biscuits with butter and homemade pear butter on it. The only thing not homemade is the butter. I could make that though if I wanted to out of the heavy whipping cream. The secret of doing butter is to take the heavy whipping cream and let it sit out at room temperature for a while before shaking it up. Once you shake it up in like a gallon jug, and make it about maybe a third full of cream. And you get a lot of room for it to splash around vigorously. And then the butter will separate from the whey. Then you can drink the whey. And then you take the butter and you wash it with cold water. And then you pat out the water out of the butter. And then you put some salt in it if you want salted butter. And after you add the salt, then you mix it all together. Then you rinse it again. And you pat it again with a wooden thing, kind of like this. And then you pat out all the water, and then you have the right flavor of salted butter. That's how you make it. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and eat my biscuits with my homemade pear butter and my butter. It's melted in.